What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and today's an important one. Today is the opening salvo in our continuing coverage of the 2018 National Hockey League Stanley Cup Playoffs. As if you couldn't know that, you read the title of the video, you see I'm wearing a hockey jersey, that usually only means one thing. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be predicting the remainder of the National Hockey League regular season. We're going to be predicting who's going to be winning these divisions, who's going to make the playoffs, and who's just going to miss out. One thing I think it's always important to do before we go anywhere with predictions is look at what the playoff picture looks like right now. If the playoffs started today, what would the matchups be? In the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay, by virtue of not only leading the Atlantic Division, but having more points than the Washington Capitals, who lead the Met, would play host to the Wildcard 2 team, which right now would be the New Jersey Devils. And the 2 versus 3 matchup in the Atlantic would be the Boston Bruins playing host to the Toronto Maple Leafs. The aforementioned Washington Capitals, by virtue of leading the Metropolitan Division, would be playing host to the top wildcard team, which right now is the Columbus Blue Jackets, division rival. And in the 2 versus 3 matchup in the Metropolitan Division, you have the Pittsburgh Penguins playing host to the Philadelphia Flyers, the Battle of Pennsylvania. In the Western Conference, you have the Nashville Predators, by virtue of not only leading the Central Division, but also having more points than the Pacific Division leading Vegas Golden Knights, would play host to the number 2 wildcard team, which right now in the West is the Colorado Avalanche. And then in the 2 versus 3 matchup in the Central Division, you would have the Winnipeg Jets playing host to the Minnesota Wild. And the aforementioned Vegas Golden Knights, by virtue of currently leading the Pacific Division, would play host to the number 1 wildcard team, which right now is the Dallas Stars. And the 2 versus 3 matchup in the Pacific Division would see the San Jose Sharks play host to the Los Angeles Kings. So that's how the playoff matchups look right now. But, I mean, look, every team in the league has at least 12 games left right now. I usually like to get this done earlier, but as I've been very vocal about on Twitter, caught a bit of a stomach flu. It's had me down and out for close to a week. We're going to get the quick stuff out of the way, and by quick stuff, I mean the division winners, the teams that are going to win each of these 4 divisions in the NHL, and it's only because 3 of the divisions aren't overly competitive. We're actually going to start out west, where I think one division has already been spoken for, and it's probably the least likely division to have been spoken for, and that's the Pacific. The Vegas Golden Knights, just remarkably, have a 12-point lead right now in the standings over the San Jose Sharks, who are number 2 in that division. Vegas has 95 points and 42 wins in regulation or overtime. From here on out, I'm just going to call those rows. They got 42 rows, regulation and overtime wins. So Vegas, 95 points, 42 rows. You got San Jose with 83 and 33 respectively. So that's not going to be caught. Like, they're not going to be caught there. The Vegas Golden Knights, I have them predicted to finish the season with 118 points and 50 rows. You think about that, 50 regulation and overtime wins. They only play 82 games. Vegas, baby, celebrate the way only you can, because you've done something that even your biggest fans before this season started would not have dreamt that you would do in your opening season. Live it up. I know you can, but also live with the expectations, because now you're a division winner. You're not an underdog anymore. You have very, very quickly become a favorite. But the Vegas Golden Knights are your Pacific Division champions. We'll stay in the West and we'll go to the Central, which is definitely more competitive. Right now, we've got the Nashville Predators leading the Central Division. They've got 98 points with 39 rows to this point in the season. The only other team that we really have to talk about, though, in terms of being in contention to win the division, is the Winnipeg Jets, who right now sit with 92 points, but an equal number of rows. They both have 39. One thing here that does hurt Winnipeg, however, even though this is only a 6-point spread with at least a dozen games to go, Nashville has a game in hand on Winnipeg. Nashville, in fact, has 14 games left in their regular season. Winnipeg only has 13, so they have to make up that gap with one fewer game to play. Winnipeg has 3 tough road games remaining this season that I do actually think they drop in regulation. That is in Nashville, in Toronto, and an upset in Montreal. I do have them dropping a game in Chicago as well, but I think they get a point out of that game. And the big difference here between Nashville and Winnipeg is Nashville is going to take their losses that I have projected for them for the rest of the season, and they're going to translate those losses into points, getting into overtime, getting into the shootout, just to get that, as Steve Dangle calls it, the pity point. Those games are in Colorado, in Minnesota, and in Winnipeg. Winnipeg, I don't think, is going to be able to do that. So I do have the Nashville Predators holding on to be your Central Division champions for 2018. I've got Nashville finishing with 121 points to actually finish tops in the Western Conference. I've got Winnipeg finishing with 111 points. I do still have both teams finishing with the same number of rows, that is 45, but Winnipeg's just not going to be able to catch Nashville, with Nashville pulling in the extra points from their losses. Then we move into the East and we go to the Atlantic Division, my division, the Habs division. And Montreal will make a tremendous No, they're not. They're not going to make a tremendous comeback. That is definitely not going to happen. Right now we've got the Tampa Bay Lightning, the only team in the NHL that has hit triple digits in points to this point. Tampa Bay has an even 100 points on the board with 42 rows. You've also got the Boston Bruins, who I think are the only other team that are in this conversation. Like, Toronto's 13 points back, and they don't have any games in hand. So, I mean, I can't really include them in good conscience. But Boston's got 94 points and 40 rows. They're only 6 points back, and the Bruins have 2 games in hand. So this division is not decided yet, except for the fact that Tampa Bay is really, really good. But again, Boston's got a lot of things going in their favor right now. They have those 2 games in hand. They also play Tampa Bay 3 more times in this regular season. Part of the problem there is 2 of those 3 games are in Tampa. And the main reason why I don't think the Bruins can catch Tampa at this point, the Bruins have not been good enough on the road. The Bruins have 3 more stretches this season of at least 3 straight games on the road. That is ridiculous. And right in the middle, right sandwiched in the middle, they've got a 4-game stretch against Western Conference opponents that are all right now either in the playoffs or on the playoff bubble. They have to go in back-to-back games to St. Louis, Dallas, Minnesota, and Winnipeg. I think the Bruins lose all 4 of those games. Now, it's tough to say that a team with 94 points right now is going to have a 4-game losing streak, but that is incredibly tough to go into Western Conference buildings on back-to-back games and find success. And I don't think the Bruins have been good enough on the road that they're going to be able to do that. But if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning schedule, I think the only game that Tampa Bay loses in regulation for the rest of the season is when they play host to the Nashville Predators. I think Nashville is a good enough road team that they can go into Tampa and beat Tampa late in the season when they've probably already got the division locked up. So I'm going to just go ahead and call it. Even though it's only 6 points, there's plenty of games left to play. I've got the Tampa Bay Lightning holding on to win the Atlantic Division. I know I'm not saying anything transgressive when I say that. I've got the Lightning finishing with 123 points and getting to that magic number of 50 rows, 50 games won in regulation or overtime. 123 points is actually going to be good enough. If you remember us talking about Vegas, it is going to be good enough, and Nashville, that the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the 2018 President's Trophy as the league's top team in the regular season. A preemptive congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning. I have you winning your division, winning the President's Trophy, and having all the expectations again that come with that. But I've got the Lightning holding on to win that division. Come on, Tampa still gets to play Ottawa, Arizona, and Buffalo. That's not fair. And Edmonton, they get to play the Oilers too. Who made this schedule? The one division that is still very competitive and it's very unclear as to who is going to win that division is the Metropolitan Division, a very strong division. But right now, I could probably say there are 4 teams that I could realistically say could still have a shot at winning this division. Maybe 5 if you really want to stretch it. Right now, you've got the Washington Capitals sitting with 85 points and 36 rows. Right behind them is Pittsburgh with 84 points and 38 rows. So they've actually got 2 more rows than does the Washington Capitals, but they're 1 point behind. The Philadelphia Flyers have 81 points and 33 rows. They're only 4 points behind Washington. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 79 points with 31 rows. So they're only 6 points behind Washington. And we'll include New Jersey, 78 points, 7 points behind with 30 rows. It's not unrealistic to think that any one of those 5 teams could really go on a run and could challenge Washington and Pittsburgh and even Philadelphia for the top spot in this division. Washington and New Jersey each have 13 games left. The rest only have 12. I always look at chasing a division championship this way. If you're a team that's in behind, so we're talking about Philadelphia, Columbus, and New Jersey, what really kills you are regulation losses. You can lose a game in overtime or in a shootout here and there. You obviously want to win more than you lose, for sure. But if you got to lose, take it to overtime, take it to the shootout, get to that pity point, get that extra point if you're chasing the division. The problem here with these teams, and especially the teams that only have 12 games left, I've got each of those 3 teams in behind. So we're talking about Philadelphia, Columbus, and New Jersey. I've got each of them losing at least 3 more games in regulation. And for Columbus and New Jersey, I've actually got them losing 4. So we can effectively basically eliminate those teams because they've just got too much ground to make up to be losing games in regulation. Jersey starts off with a really, like almost a murderous 5-game road trip starting right now where they have to go to Vegas, Los Angeles, Anaheim, San Jose, and Pittsburgh. I've got them losing all 5 of those games. 2 of them, I think they get to overtime to get the extra point. But I mean, at that point, 5 of your games are gone. You've only gotten 2 points out of them. Jersey does not really have a realistic shot. You look at Columbus, they've got to go to Philly. I think they lose that game. They've got to go to Boston. I think they lose that game. And then to close out the season, Columbus has to go to Nashville. And even though it's going to be the end of the season and Nashville will likely have nothing to play for at that point, they'll be all locked up. That's still a really deep and good team. So I've got them losing in Nashville. Columbus, we can eliminate them from the running to win this division. When you're looking at the Philadelphia Flyers, there's one key game on the rest of their schedule, and that's when they host the Washington Capitals. I think Philadelphia wins that game. Matter of fact, I've actually got Philadelphia winning out the rest of their division games on their schedule this season, save for the one game where they have to go to Pittsburgh. Philadelphia is going to have an excellent end to the season within this division. It's just not going to be quite enough. I've got them finishing just under 100 points on the season. That's not going to be good enough to win this division. Whoever wins this division will be up over 100 points. So then it comes down to the 2 teams at the top. You got Washington and you've got Pittsburgh. Right now, they're only separated, as we mentioned, by 1 point. Pittsburgh, of course, has the edge with the 2 extra regulation and overtime wins. Washington has the edge with the extra game in hand. And I think it's the game in hand that's going to be the difference between these 2 teams. I've got each of them losing 2 more times in regulation. They're both on the road. I've got Washington losing in Pittsburgh and in St. Louis. I've got Pittsburgh losing in New Jersey and in Columbus, only because those games are on road ice. I got both of these teams losing some games outside of regulation, so they're going to get some points out of those games, but it's just that 1 extra game for Washington, the game in hand, that I think is going to be the difference. So I've got the Washington Capitals holding on to win the Metropolitan Division, finishing the season with 104 points and 41 rows. So basically that was a long way of me saying the teams that are leading the divisions right now are going to win the divisions. But that's not the fun part. The fun part is who's going to make the playoffs, who's actually going to be in these matchups, what matchups might be favorable if you get in not as a home team, but as a road team. That's the really intriguing stuff. So that's what we're going to get into on the next video. We're going to make this into 2 videos. Just today. We're both going to upload them today, so they're all going to be right there. You can literally go over right now and watch the second video for who's going to make the playoffs. So we're going to cut this right here. We're going to come back in just a second. Let's find out, are the playoff matchups going to hold true to what we mentioned earlier, or are they going to change up a little bit? You got to come to the next video to find that out. We'll see you in a minute.